So Blade & Soul is coming out this Friday. The full release is on Tuesday, but I get to start playing with my head start on Friday, which I will be doing a 24-hour live stream over on my Twitch page starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys want to come hang out, watch me level, PvP, etc., I am super pumped. I seriously think that, at least from what I got to experience during the beta, this game is the most fun PvP game I have played since I first picked up League of Legends over 5.5 years ago now. The upcoming release of Blade & Soul got me thinking a bit about PvP games and multiplayer games in general. I've typically played two types of video games in my life: narrative-driven games like BioShock, Zero Escape, and The Last of Us that tell really interesting stories through the single-player format, but more often than not, I love PvP or multiplayer games. From RuneScape to Dofus to Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo Reach to Counter-Strike to StarCraft to eventually League of Legends, I love good PvP, and today I want to ask you guys a question about it. What makes a good PvP game? If you were making your own PvP game and you had free reign to do whatever you want, what 3 elements would you want to focus on to make the best, most fun PvP game possible? If we're excluding the obvious answers like good balance or whatever, this is what I would want. The first thing I would focus on would definitely be speed. Gotta go fast. I'm a firm believer that speed is one of the most exciting elements to any sport or competitive video game. The idea of the faster you go, the better you can be, means that theoretically, that creates an unlimited skill cap. Think about it in terms of traditional sports. The faster you go, the better you can do certain things for a team in any sport, it feels like. I mean, the faster you are as a cornerback or a wide receiver in American football, the easier it will be for you to do your role, running routes and catching throws or covering receivers. The faster you are as a forward or a winger in association football, the easier it will be for you to outrun defenders and get behind the back line. And the fact that you can theoretically always go faster means that you always have something to work towards. There's obviously a cap to how fast a human being can run, but you never think about it like that. You never have a point in a sport where you just think, okay, I've trained enough, I've built enough muscle, I'm strong enough and fast enough as I need to be, time to just laze around and wait for our next game. Video games have a much more definable cap with speed in terms of how many frames it takes for you to do certain tasks, but I think the exact same element can be applied to games. Being able to pull off skills one after another in quick succession is a fun thing to do, it's impressive for spectators to watch, and it's a good way to measure skill. Speed is also something that can keep a game alive for years competitively. Just look at Melee. People are still getting faster and better at that game every day because of how the game's design caters to that. People have been learning how to go faster every year for more than a decade at this point. Having at least the option for quick aggressive gameplay like this would be a must for my game. The second thing my game's design would focus on would be having gameplay that's unscripted. If there's one thing a PvP game can do to shoot itself in the foot in terms of longevity, it would be having way too much scripted gameplay. If there's only one combo or one strategy or one tactic that's 100% superior to every other option, things will very quickly become stale. You know what you're gonna do, your opponent knows what you're gonna do, and the audience knows what you're gonna do. Everyone just gets bored because of that after a while. A lot of games suffer from this. A community will have a ton of options at their disposal for how they want to play the game at its start, but as soon as people start finding the best, most efficient strategy, they'll stop trying to innovate. Again, going back to our Melee or fighting game example, that's one thing that can really make or break a 2D fighter. If you just have one way to approach your opponent or one way to combo them, then it's boring. There's no skill in actually pulling off the combo since everyone knows what's coming. It's just a matter of who hits who first, if you can get your opener on your opponent or if they block it. The great 2D fighters out there have multiple ways to approach and to combo and to do cool things that are never 100% expected from your opponent or the audience. You can always change things up. Having a game that's unscripted is really important to keep it from getting boring in this kind of way. You could even argue League of Legends is unscripted in the way that you can run all sorts of kinds of team comps, or you could run all sorts of different strategies and ways to team fight or move around the map. You gotta keep your audience on their toes and let your player base surprise each other every once in a while with new strategies to keep them from getting bored. And finally, the third and most important element to me in my game would be depth. Depth is a double-edged sword that can make a game amazing, but it can also kill it at the same time. You can argue that adding too many small elements that give your game a ton of depth will end up creating an incredibly high learning curve that prevents newer players from getting into it. That's actually how a lot of League players feel about Dota. Dota is a game with a lot more elements than League, with turn ratios, more abilities, and more things that can be affected by heroes and items, but that also ends up making the game super intimidating for a newer player that wants to get into it, and it can feel like it bogs down down the experience. However, depth can also be a beautiful thing that gives a game a higher skill ceiling and creates mind games between opponents at higher levels of play. A good example would actually be Blade and Soul. In Blade and Soul, there's a few different types of CC that can affect a player in PvP, straight stuns, getting knocked down, knocked back, and players can have a few different ways to combat each one. For instance, each player has something called a tab escape that can break any CC and will damage and stun opponents around them when it's used. However, this tab escape has a 45-second cooldown, meaning that if you don't have it up, a lot of classes can take advantage of you and combo you to death when you don't have any way to break out of their combo. So it creates this level of mind games where you can bait out someone's tab escape by pretending you're going for a full combo, or if you're getting comboed, you have to think, do I use it now? Are they comboing me for real? Are they trying to bait out my escape? Should you use a less effective escape to break out of the combo? Should you use a counter if your class has something like that? Should you just take the damage? Adding things like this along with counters and blocks and different ways that each ability can interact with all the other abilities makes the game really feel like every time you kill someone, it's because you outplayed them, and every time someone kills you, it means you got outplayed. Anyway, I want to hear what you guys think about all this. Leave a comment. What are your 3 favorite elements to the PvP games you play, and what would be your perfect PvP game and why? I hope you guys all enjoyed chilling with me a bit here. I'll hopefully see some of you over on that 24-hour stream, which again will be starting this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday the 15th. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.